So my name is Ruwad, and I have been working for around 4 years as a full stack software engineer, mainly in the web area. I have used languages like JavaScript, Python, PHP, C Sharp, and SQL. I was reflecting back on my years of experience and what I have learned during my career so far, and I thought I would document them down in a brief way by making this video. The main reason is I want to look back at this after maybe 2 years or more, just to see how much I have grown as an engineer and how many mistakes I have made with this video and how many important things I have left behind. So this video about main 3 points: management, process of coding, and database. I think database is important, that's why I added it. And I am aware that these things might sound super obvious to some of you, but I don't think they are super obvious for a lot of people. So I thought I will just document them, and hopefully they might be useful for someone. So to get started, the first point is management. This is a huge part, I believe, in our work as engineers, and could be the most important part, I would say. I would say it's the most important part. And I have noted down some things I believe makes this process beneficial for the whole team. The first thing is regular one-on-one meetings with your manager. During these meetings, you discuss your own career growth with your manager and how he or she can help you with that. You discuss some concerns you have about the feature, some concerns about the process, some concerns about how the whole team works. So basically, you discuss your job with the manager. You raise anything you think that could be harmful for the team. So it's a good thing to have these kind of meetings as regular as possible, maybe once every week or two, just to discuss the whole situation and to discuss also your career in the company. So I think that's very important. The second point, if you work under agile methodology, reflecting back on sprints is very good idea. A sprint retrospective, this is called sprint retrospective. Each person from the team raises some concerns or like points out some things that went very well, or points out some things that slowed us down, or things that actually made things much faster for us. And by reflecting back on the whole sprint, we get a good idea of what are the things that we want to keep in our way of working, what are the things that we will try to eliminate or hopefully eliminate from our process, so we can speed our delivery or speed our work. So basically, we identify what went well, what went wrong, what are the things that slow us down, and how we can actually solve or enhance some of these things. So this is very important, I believe. Maybe if you are an agile expert, I'm pretty sure I oversimplified what is sprint retrospective, but I think that's maybe the main idea, and I believe it's super important. So the next point, continuous delivery does not imply continuous enhancements. You can't continuously merge things to the main branch and deploy them. But usually we hide them under feature flags until they are ready, which means we don't continuously enhance the product, right? So one thing we can do to solve this is to break the features into smaller features that could be delivered separately, which is of course not easy. But yeah, that's, I think, a very important point to remember. Since most of us works under agile, like, yeah, some people think, okay, I'm always merging and deploying a lot, but yeah, this does not mean continuous enhancements, which is something we should remember at least. This actually brings me to a subject a bit close to this, which is called feature flags. So these are things that help us a lot with continuous integration of features. They allow developers to manage their changes, to merge their changes into the main branch as fast as possible, even if the feature is not ready. You implement a small part of the feature, then you create a branch, hide the feature under this flag, and just match it when the PR is approved. And this leads to smaller branches and less time waiting to merge these changes. to the main branch, which speeds up the integration. So instead of having big feature branches that takes months to be merged and require you usually to deal with big merge conflicts, you have to continuously merge your branch and just resolve these conflicts, which is super annoying. You have with feature flags, you have smaller branches that integrates a feature in very small steps. I believe this subject deserves its own video. Maybe I will do that in the future, but yeah, I think that's also a very important subject. The next point is involving the team in the technical discussion is very good idea. Everyone should have the opportunity to get involved in the technical meetings, and no one's opinion should be disregarded because of who they are or how many years of experience they have. And I believe this has the following benefits. We can reach a middle ground solution, which like everyone kind of agrees on, which lowers the conflicts, I believe. Everyone in the team feels valued and heard instead of ignored or just facing this feeling that you are just a B worker. You will just do the job and don't think that someone else is thinking for you and you have just to implement that and that's it. It's good to hear everyone's point of view. Anyone can bring something from the previous experiences they had and added into this feature we're implementing. And some features, and like in some cases, some features might not be worth implementing, but some developers might be super excited to implement. And having people from like different perspectives, like product managers involved in these kind of meetings might actually save some time and money for the company. Instead of implementing something that does not bring any value, the product manager will say, okay, this, like, I know no one will use it. We already had a discussion with the client, no one will use it, it's not worth implementing. So in these kind of cases, we save time and money for the company. In other cases, maybe involving product managers could lower the scope of the feature. So we are having these meetings about the feature, what to implement, how many sprints it takes. Maybe involving a product manager will make us realize that we don't actually need to implement the whole feature. We can actually lower the amount of things we add into the feature, which will lead us to developing part of the feature much more faster and bring that to the client in a faster way. So this is what I mean by involving everyone, not only from the technical team, also from like product manager perspective, and why actually having a product manager is a good idea, because some companies don't even have them. But I hope this point was clear. You should always have everyone involved, or at least give them the opportunity to be involved. You can write a wiki page of your solution, and everyone can comment on that. And if anyone sees any big concern, we can discuss it. Like if you don't have any time. I know this might slow things down, but I believe you should practice it as much as possible. It's a very important thing. As well for a team like morale as well. The last point in this management chapter, mutual trust and respect, or management chapter. Mutual trust and respect between team members are very important. You can't dismiss or ignore other people's solutions and opinion. You have to argue with them about why this might not work or will not work. You have to argue. You can't just dismiss anyone. Like because you think you're smarter, or because you think they don't have the experience or anything like that. This is not a good idea for building teams. Developers should be trusted. It's not a good idea to give them the feeling that they are not trustworthy. Why do you even hire someone that you think is not trustworthy? I don't think this feeling should ever exist in any company. So yeah, I believe this is an important point as well. So this is it for management. Okay, now the second point is process of coding. Understanding what is worth implementing for the client and what's not is super valuable. We should always ask ourselves, even as a developers, is this even worth implementing for the client? Does this bring any value? Does this solve anything? Like, don't just implement things because that's nice, that's cool. Like, does this actually solve anything? Is it a waste of time or not? Like, these questions should always be there somewhere. The second point is before adding a new technology, database, or a microservice, ask yourself, can I implement this new feature or can I achieve this goal that I want to achieve with my current stack without adding any new overhead? For this, I remember a case where the team introduced MongoDB alongside MySQL to store a graph data structure. It's super simple graph. It's just a root with a bunch of nodes attached to it, and you can have as much levels as you want as depth. Okay, super simple graph. So adding this MongoDB to your existing stack led to huge performance issues. Increase the things you have to learn and master to do your job correctly, and made the code base a bit more complex for no good reason. And due to limited capacity and timeline, they applied relational DB concepts on MongoDB. This is why we had these performance issues. Like MongoDB on its own, it's fine, but because you treat it as a relational database, you end up with super bad performance issues. This is not how to deal with MongoDB. So yeah, because of that, we faced a lot of performance issues, which was at the end not even worth it. Like the whole adding this whole database is not worth it. We did not achieve anything. We actually made things worse. The obvious solution here, by the way, is to use recursive common table expressions to query graphs in your relational database. These, as far as I know, these are supported in MySQL 8 and Postgres, and I believe in all other relational databases. But I could be wrong, but at least in our case, it is supported in MySQL, so we could just stick to that. It will be much, much more simpler in our case. So yeah. The other point is prioritizing features over refactoring could be a good thing. A lot of people give so much value over for refactoring code. I know this is very good thing. We should always refactor, but refactoring code and let's say should not overtake adding new features, right? That's a very important part, but you just can't make it the most important thing and just ignore anything else. You can't stop work and focus on refactoring, because old code is not that bad. It's fine to work in legacy or code bases or old frameworks and library. Nothing wrong with that. You actually learn some good things and you get some history lessons. In a way, working in old technologies makes you understand where modern libraries frameworks comes from. I have worked in a package called the Yahoo UI for a while, and it's super old. I think it's deprecated since 2007, which is you are talking about, I think, I won't do math by recording, but you are talking more than 15 years from now, which is yeah, basically I have learned how people used to write code 15 years ago, and I have noticed a lot of things that came in jQuery actually very similar to Yahoo UI. And even these old packages like Yahoo UI supports things like drag and drop, which is, I have no idea what they went through to implement that. But the only thing I can do is just raise my hat for them as a respect, which I believe is super hard to implement. But yeah, they managed to do that. So yeah, I don't think old code bases or legacy code bases are that bad, or old frameworks. I think they are totally fine to work with. There is nothing wrong with that. And the priority of features should be always more than the priority of refactoring. Maybe I'm wrong here, but that's at least my opinion. Now, the second point is providing value for other developers or the client. It's much more important than if the code is clean or not. This might sound like I'm contradicting myself, how you can write bad quality code or any clean code and at the same time providing value for the client. What I mean here is at the end, the word clean for a lot of developers mean, hey, I'm familiar with this code, which means it's clean. And I'm not familiar with this code, which means it's not clean, it's not quality code. This is the word clean code or quality code always mixed with the feeling of I'm familiar with this, which is this is completely, these two words have nothing to do with each other. Clean code does not equal familiar code. So in these kind of cases, it's the whole point of like a clean code is just goes away. Like clean code is not familiar code. It should always providing value for the client, for the business, bringing in money should be always the first priority before like talking about things that completely relative to the person. Even as the clean code as itself, it's most of the time it's very relative thing. So I don't think it's super important. And I believe like if someone might be mad at me, I believe it's at this point. But yeah, I really believe that. Like what's the point writing awesome code that you believe it's super clean, but not bringing any value to the company or to the whole team, or not even bringing money to the company, not even doing anything useful to anyone around you. It's just you think it's clean, so that's nice. So that's my point here. Thing that is relevant to this point is linters or formatters are a must in the organization. Like I'm not sure how people even function with these kind of things without these kind of things, and it just takes 5 minutes to set up, which is very awesome. So like it takes very few amount of minutes to set up, and you gain a lot by using them, which is very nice. The next point is the PR reviews. I believe the reviewer should do everything he or she can to accept the PR, and it should be as friendly as possible. It should not be like, it should not feel like a battle. It should be a relaxed thing. Should not have nitpicking. Nitpicking is a waste of time. Linters and formatters should do that. Like, yeah. PR reviews should be a place where developers exchange information about the code base or approaches. For example, hey, the class you implemented is actually implemented in another file. Can you maybe extend it or do like anything to reuse it instead of just rewriting the whole logic again? Did you thought about using this package? Or for example, hey, we are trying to retire this package. Can you not use it? Can you implement it in another approach? So these kind of things should exist in PR reviews. And I'm pretty sure if you Google it, you will find so many like things that like very big, huge bugs don't even are caught in PR reviews. I think PR reviews is very important, but I think sometimes they could be a waste of time. And we should stick to just trying to accept the PR. Like we already hired these people. Like why nitpicking? Why blocking them? Why do these power moves of though I'm requesting a change because you forgot a semicolon? Like the whole thing is sometimes could be abused to just block everyone and just feel powerful, I guess. But yeah, I think it should be an easy going process and should be done as fast as possible, no delaying in this process. So yeah. Not understanding that this is the next point, not understanding the tools and only learning the basics of them usually leads to adding many extra layers into your stack, new databases, new microservices, new languages. For example, using MongoDB or Neo4j for implementing simple graphs, where you can use recursive command table expressions, recursive CTEs in Postgres or MySQL, or adding a new Node.js microservice to use WebSockets, where you can use React PHP with PHP to do that. React PHP has nothing to do with the React that everyone knows. It's a library it's a library for PHP that allows it to be like non-blocking, asynchronous, input, output, and all of these things, which leads you to be able to use WebSockets. I guess I have never used it, but I'm aware of it. Like you don't need Node.js to use WebSockets. You can do it in PHP, that's fine. And maybe adding a new microservice could introduce a lot of overhead. Maybe using React PHP is the better option here. Yeah, I guess everything here could be argued, like maybe adding a new service, good idea. But I think always asking yourself, is it worth it? That's a good thing to discuss. Now for the final point or main point in these 3 points is the database. I believe this is the most ignored part for most engineers. A lot of developers completely ignore this part and they treat the database as a big array of data. Like they throw thousands of queries to the database, like thinking this is like, especially the people who don't understand how ORM works. They put ORM code inside recursive functions, inside nested for loops, and they don't think about anything. They think it's just like slicing an array, a big array. I would say we should learn how to model and how to query our data and how your database works. I believe we should do these things. And optimizations and some concepts here could benefit us as a lot, like database triggers, functions, stored procedures, indexes, when they could be good, when they could be bad. These things are super valuable. Understanding the n+1 query problem and remove it from your backend is very good idea. You would be surprised to learn how many performance issues are just related to this point. Like so many performance issues. I would say like maybe 40% of the backend work I have did so far just goes to this problem, just fixing this. Hey, we have performance issues. What's the issue? We are doing so much unnecessary queries. Let me fix it. Yeah, I would say you will be surprised to learn how many problems comes actually from this small issue. And maybe the next thing is sharding and partitioning are good ideas in some cases. Instead of going into these microservices and doing these weird shenanigans, you can just maybe use things like sharding and partitioning, but make sure you actually need it, because things like aggregates and analytics will be super hard. I would say hard. Understanding the next part is understanding the query plan and how to optimize it is a good idea. Like you should understand how your database runs the query. For example, I once I recall using MongoDB aggregations, and the aggregation was very slow, and I thought it will be fast because I have an index. Okay, I generated the plan. I saw that the MongoDB is not using that index in the query. So I figured out this thing called the hint method. You can tell MongoDB, hey, use these indexes for this aggregation. And that actually fixed the problem. The query is fast. This is just a small example, but yeah, you should really understand how the query works so you can optimize it and how you can optimize it. And another point is regarding databases is validations or constraints. They are called constraints on the database level. Usually we add them in the backend level or on the ORM level, which could lead to some invalid data entering your database. Of course, this depends on your situation, but these invalid data will enter your database from raw SQL migrations, for example, or Excel files that are imported directly to your database, which could happen and happened for me. And I did these mistakes. Like a lot of these things that I mentioned, I did these mistakes. I'm not like targeting people. But yeah, these kind of migrations using raw SQL or from Excel files could actually lead for you to have invalid data in your database. So maybe think twice before adding validations on the API level or on the ORM level or on the database level. So maybe like think good about your cases and where you should add these. I say that's a nice thing to remember. Or my next point is object relational mappers are not the only way to talk with databases. I kind of lean into not liking them that much, and sometimes I think they bring so much overhead. Like I have to redo everything I did in SQL. I have to redo it in ORM just to get started and just to write some queries. I have to define the properties again, what they are, what the relationships. I have to redefine them again. It depends on the framework, but yeah, it's I don't like them that much. But what I'm saying here is it's not the only way. If you are a backend developer, you can. I know some people that use the ORM only for the insert and update and delete, because it makes things faster for you, especially for writing these queries. And they use raw SQL to read, because they can write more optimized query instead of relying on the generated SQL query, which is not super optimized in a lot of cases. And I know some people that actually completely remove the ORM and use query builders and just raw SQL queries. For me, I lean to not liking ORMs, but I don't mind using them. I'm fine with actually the three options. I'm totally fine. query builders or queries or ORMs, I use them all. They are all fine. In the end, I would say maybe keep in mind that ORMs are not the source of truth. So don't just look at these classes and the relationship between these classes and assume you know your database and everything. You should actually look inside your database, look at the constraints of the database, look at the relations to the database, because some frameworks, the relation you define at the ORM level could by mistake be different from the relation that exists on the database level, which is like, what I'm saying is ORMs are just an abstraction of your data layer. Like, don't treat it as the source of truth. That's what I'm saying. At the end, some of the problems I mentioned above, like I actually did it in the past. Like this n+1 query problem, I remember on my first job, I actually used to do this a lot. I have learned not to do it, and actually I had to go at some point and redo every query I had, or almost every query I had, just to fix these kind of issues for the client, because the website was basically not functional after like they hit their peak season, which caused some annoying issues. But so yeah, I'm just reflecting back, and I thought these things are important, and I hope this was useful anyway, and maybe shed some lights on some things you want to explore. And yeah, bye.